There we go. Julie, you're looking after us this morning. Thank you.
That's the
So yeah,
recording
welcome
started.
everyone. Yeah, crikey, we're round to this time of year again, where it's our busy audit and audit risk and scrutiny, where we've got a fairly full agenda today. So we'll just crack on. Do we have any declarations of interest or any statements of transparency that need to be made? Nope, I wasn't expecting any this morning. That's excellent. We'll just move on. Just 1 second. I was about to just welcome everyone. Kath has just sent me a message, James, to say that she's struggling with the link. I don't know, because I was about to explain that we've got a bit of a vacancy until we have the IGB next week with membership. So James, are you able just to invite Kath in?
Yeah, I'll try and get her on the call for you, Max.
Thanks very much. I mean, we'll pick it up formally as part of the IGB next week. So Kath isn't formally a member of this committee yet, but as a standing committee or a subcommittee of the board, any member is welcome at any time, and she will be joining going forward. In fact, no, Kath has, I've lost track of what officially we have got membership and what requires next week, but Kath is attempting to join us, so she'll be joining.
I think you had it spot on first time, Margaret. Kath isn't officially on until she's appointed next week, yes.
But in terms of, as you know, I'll cover it all at the end. We're going to have changes in membership for this committee and the IGB, so we'll pick it up all at the end, and hopefully while I'm just doing all the blurb, Kath will be able to join us and get a feel for what happens in this committee. So while we're doing that, we'll move on to the minute of our previous meeting, which was back on the 20th of June. Do we have any questions, comments, items for correction? Are we content to approve that? Content? Yeah, happy to record that as a minute of the previous meeting. Thank you. That takes us on to main agenda items for today. Various papers today. In terms of everyone presenting, you'll know that all the members will have read the papers, and really what we're looking for in terms of introduction is just draw our attention to the main areas that you want us to focus on, and then allow us to move on if there are any questions. Okay, so first of all, we've got our section on internal audit. So Karen, a few reports from you, the first being the progress report, item 2. I'll hand over to you. Morning, Karen.
Morning, Max. Morning, everyone. This is just our usual report regarding the 2025-26 internal audit plan progress. And you'll note that the strategic plan first review is not scheduled until to commence in Q3, and that's on target to be done during that period. I've held off preparing a briefing programme regarding certain topics for members because I knew there was new members joining, so I will be asking them to complete a knowledge framework in first instance, and then I'll bring a briefing report at a later stage for approval. Also at 3.2, you might have noticed that there is a special review which has been undertaken, and that is going to be an exempt item later in today, but I just want to assure members that this doesn't affect the IGB audit plan because the time taking was taken out the internal audit contingency for the council. I have a large chunk of contingency there for undertaking such items as what I did here. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Karen, that's helpful. I see Kath has now joined as well, so that's helpful that she's got that as a new member. These updates just help us. We don't meet that frequently as a committee, so it's just a good check-in for us to gauge where the work is at and understand your progress for the year. So no questions for Karen on that item. Thank you. We just note that update, Karen. Move on to item 3, the partner organisations. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you. This report gives you details of the internal audit work carried out by either AZETS in the Health Board and also myself in Renfrewshire Council. Within the council, my annual report was approved by their audit committee equivalent. Just to note, on page 30 of the paper, section 10, you will see that includes my opinion on the adequacy of internal control, risk management and governance arrangements, and I'm pleased to say that I found these to be satisfactory during the year. With regards to the Health Board, 2 internal audits were completed, and whilst I can't give you any more details than what's really in my report, I would just like to point out that I do get information to note that any recommendations made are, the progress of these are reported to the Health Board Audit Committee regularly, in case you were concerned about because there was some areas for improvement. And again, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Karen. Yeah, and I, as you know, I've sat on the Health Board Audit and Risk Committee as well, so I do have that oversight of that. It operates slightly different from this, as you might expect, because, and again, we see this all the time, all the systems and processes sit in our partner organisations, so all the employees sit in our partner organisations, so that's where all the actions have to sit. The Health Board Audit and Risk Committee does get full reports, unlike this, so it's not just the summary, so that is there and actions are tracked. So what Karen is telling you is exactly as I see in the Health Board, and Karen has the benefit of sitting in and being part of the council audit process. No questions on those? Oh, Jacqueline, bring you in.
Sorry, we covered the council one there as well, Karen?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine. It's just because you mentioned NHS. No, it's just as you say, I know it will be reported to the Council's Audit Risk and Scrutiny Board, but there was a bit about allergens in schools that kind of stood out, because obviously it's really important for people to be aware. So I didn't have a chance to look up the findings and what the Audit Risk and Scrutiny Board concluded, but I don't know if you knew offhand. Probably not, as you were just saying, the report goes to those boards, but I just wondered. There's a specific bit about allergens and about staff in school not having limited training, which obviously kind of sets alarm bells off a little bit.
Yes, it was my team that undertook the review, and basically I think there was an incident in one of the schools, and we were asked to verify what procedures were in place in a sample of schools, Councillor Cameron, and we found out that the training was a bit inconsistent. So, but that was followed through by the managers, and now again I'll be following up the recommendations to make sure the recommendations were fully implemented.
Oh, thanks for that, Can. As I say, I meant to check the board papers before I came on today, but I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I will do that and follow that up myself. Thanks.
Thanks, Jacqueline. And I think that's always quite an important point about these reports, that actually it's understanding the follow-up, that actually it's one thing having a finding, but getting the confidence and the assurance that the follow-up takes place in a timely manner is just as valuable.
Yeah. In the council, we do an annual follow-up, so any recommendations for the previous years that were due to be implemented, and again that will be reported, the progress of the recommendations were reported to the Audit Risk and Scrutiny Committee within the council.
Excellent. No more questions for Karen on that paper. So we're just noting that it's really very much for information paper. That takes us on to item 4. Still with you, Karen. The new global standards. Hand over to you.
Yes. New internal audit standards for the UK public sector were introduced in April 2025, which we have to comply with. But it's not expected, SIPA have stated that they're not expecting us to be fully compliant on day 1, but to be working throughout 25-26 to achieve full compliance. So as a first stage of undertaking a gap analysis, which I thought might be useful to share with members to exactly where we are in achieving compliance. And as you can see, we generally do comply with the standards. We have scored ourselves partially compliant in 3 areas, and I'll be working on these as a first priority. In addition, all the staff, my staff, have now been trained on the main elements of the standards since I prepared this paper. And the other actions that are mentioned, apart from the charter and the strategy, are really further improvement actions to enhance our working practices. So I don't propose to go through it in all the detail, but I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thanks, Karen. It's useful for us to see what your standards are. Lisa Marie, come to you first.
Thanks, Mags. A comment rather than a question, because I think when you undertake these sort of assessments of where you are, it's always quite gratifying and a great deal of comfort for us who are looking at this to see that actually there are very few elements where any significant action is needed. I think that is, Karen is smiling because I've seen these papers before, obviously at this pre-agenda, but also at full council, and I'm audit, risk and scrutiny at council, and I'm saying much the same thing. But both audit committees, I think, have done a lot of work with officers over the past few years to ensure the robustness of our audit committees and the work we're doing. Mags, as co-chair, you've been part of leading that, and your expertise has been really helpful. But I think that the work that we have done to ensure things are robust shows in Karen's gap analysis, and I was just really pleased to see that. It's a good check-in on how we're doing, and the fact that there is new guidance and we meet almost all of it, I think, is a very positive thing.
Thanks, Lisa Marie. Karen, are there any resource implications from your first review of this in terms of what is required to become compliant, either in terms of staffing or absolute, extra cost, whether that's training, equipment, whatever resources?
At the moment in the team, I'm carrying 2 vacancies because I've just recently been appointed into the Chief Auditor post permanently. So we have carried the vacancies so as I can look at the team structure and see if any tweaks are required. I have been given assurances from the Director of Finance that there'll be no reduction in resource, and he has given that assurance to the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Board as well. So at the moment, I would say no. At the moment, we have built in a vacancy factor into both plans this year because we knew when Andrea retired that we were likely to have a vacancy, but we will be looking to recruit in the near future.
Okay, that's helpful. And in terms of, are there any aspects of the new standards that cause you any particular concern, or is it simply a matter of going through and it feels like slight improvements in processes rather than overhaul? Is that fair?
Yeah, I would concur with that. The main items is really just to update the charter and also to bring a formalised strategy in place. There are bits of strategy held in the manual and in the charter, but I just want to bring all that together, and the rest of them are just improvements, which I think will help the team.
That sounds fair. Sounds good. No other questions. So I guess this committee will get an update on this at a later point. So thank you very much for that, Karen. That's you. Nearly done. We'll hold off till the end for you as well. That then takes us on to the next section of the agenda, where it's a key part of the work that this committee does around the annual accounts. Sarah, I'll maybe come to you first to introduce, but we've got Rob and Grace from our auditors EY online as well. But Sarah, do you want to do the first introduction? This is your baby.
Yes, it is. And I suppose, firstly, thanks to Rob and Grace and their team to working again really well and closely with us to carry out the audit this year. And I think it's a really positive audit report from themselves, and it does reflect the work of the partnership over the past year. It also highlights a number of positives in terms of financial management, governance and the use of resources. But as expected, and I would have worried if it didn't, it does flag up financial sustainability again and the need to identify recurring savings in order to be financially sustainable going forward. So that was expected, but overall I think it's a really positive report. I won't say any more because obviously Rob and Grace are here and they can talk to their report. It's not my report, so over to them.
Welcome, both of you. If you want to just give us some highlights, you're not reading it to us, don't worry, you don't have to present the whole report to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'll speak to the key matters in the report that we wanted to draw attention to, but obviously I appreciate it's a very extensive report, so if there are other aspects that questions want to be asked on, absolutely happy to take any questions after that. So as you've said and Sarah said, this report sets out provisionally our audit results for the financial statements year 24-25. The report is marked as provisional, which is just standard practice at this stage up until the date of our signing of, or the IJB signing of the accounts and our signing of our audit opinion. But our work is, with one or two exceptions, materially complete, and we don't anticipate any issues in completing. We've set out in our executive summary, obviously, our key conclusions with respect to both the financial statements audit and then our responsibilities under the Audit Scotland Code of Practice around wider scope dimensions and best value, which I'll talk to a little bit later on. Just to confirm that substantially speaking, the audit took place and was undertaken in line with the planned approach that was set out in the audit plan, which was presented to the committee earlier on in the year. In particular, our assessment of materiality is updated throughout the course of the year, and there were no changes to that approach. And the key procedures that we undertook around the substantive balances and transactions in the IGB accounts were similar, or were similarly carried out. I would draw your attention to on page 8. We have a brief summary of the status of our work. Probably the one substantive matter is we are going back and forth still with the council's auditor around the confirmation of balances that are in the council's financial statements to ensure, and that's one of the material procedures we have around that balance. We're continuing to progress that, and obviously we'll shout if there's any concern, but obviously we are trying to conclude that as a matter of urgency. All other procedures really just come under our standard consideration of subsequent events, and then our quality assurance processes up until the date of signing the financial statements. On page 9 of our report, which is page 67 of the pack, we've set out our consideration of some of the factors that impact the execution of the audit to try and be as transparent as possible in terms of our assessment of management arrangements, which is slightly different slightly different as an approach this year. But really, just to reiterate, I suppose what Sarah said to start with, overall, you can see from this sort of flood of green that we reflect very positively on management arrangements to support an audit, and the readiness and preparedness of the financial statements and supporting information, and then management arrangements to support and answer queries or challenge throughout the course of the audit. So just want to take the opportunity to put on put on record our thanks to management and the finance team for that. With respect to the audit approach, as I said, it was carried out in line with the plan. We have one significant fraud risk around the risk of fraud in expenditure recognition. Again, this is very much driven by presumed risks under auditing standards, so no reflection on the IJB itself. But with the exception of that one outstanding matter, which we're concluding, we have no matters to report, and don't anticipate any issues there. On page 14, we've summarised our responsibilities and consideration with respect to the going concern basis on which the accounts are prepared, and concluded that we concur with management's assessment. Obviously, I'll speak maybe a little bit more to the wider financial sustainability in a second. That was everything I was going to say on the financial statements aspect of the audit. Obviously, under the Audit Scotland Code of Practice, we also carry out work in respect of what we call the wider scope dimensions. These are around financial management, financial sustainability, vision leadership and governance, and the use of resources to improve outcomes. Financial management, all areas except for financial sustainability, we've RAG rated green. Financial management, obviously, we've concluded, obviously, that arrangements are in place to ensure effective financial management throughout the year, and summarise some of our conclusions. But I wasn't going to go speak in much detail around any of those, but very happy to take any questions. As Sarah, As Sarah signposted, and in line with previous years, we have raised, or we have concluded a red rating for financial sustainability, in particular drawing out obviously the position with the IJB's general reserves continuing to be significantly below the target balances, and obviously the continuing and escalating, I suppose, increasing risk around the funding gap that exists going forward, I think through to 27-28. And as a result, the critical need, in our view, to identify recurring savings or reduction in services, if that can't be identified, to ensure financial sustainability going forward. With respect to vision, leadership and governance, again, we've concluded that overall arrangements are in place and operating in line with our expectations throughout the course of the financial year under audit. There's progress being made with respect to the integration scheme, but we note that that continues to be delayed for a number of reasons in terms of against the original planned updated period of time. And I suppose linked again to that, the overall conclusion around financial sustainability, we have noted obviously all the wider scope dimensions have a degree of interlinking, but we did think it was appropriate to note obviously the importance of IJB members working collectively with officers given the scale of the financial challenge going forward. Finally, with respect to wider scope, use of resources, again, we've concluded as green and we have no material matters to raise. Obviously, we've drawn out a number of conclusions with respect to our work, but nothing I was proposing to bring to attention of the committee. And then finally, all of that work sets out our overall consideration or factors into our overall consideration of the IJB's arrangements to demonstrate best value. And we concluded that those arrangements are in place for the financial year under audit. However, I think again, in line with previous years, we have drawn attention to the risk around the financial outlook and the clear impact that could have on the ability to deliver and demonstrate best value going forward. The rest of the report summarises a number of communication responsibilities that we have as auditors to those charged with governance, but there was nothing I was particularly going to draw to attention of the committee today. So with that, I'm happy to pause there, and then Grace and I can take any questions.
Thanks, Rob. That's a really helpful canter through. It's obviously a really detailed report, and I think it's well written because it describes what I recognise as what we see, but definitely gives us the assurance that the processes underpinning the financials, while we might not like the financial position that demonstrates, actually we have sound processes in place, and that they are working well, and that the process of developing and reporting on our annual accounts is complicated and clearly is being well done. So I think it's really great to see the efficiency piece coming through in terms of all the work to get us to this stage. I was about to say, I don't see any hands for questions, just as Jacqueline put hers up. Jacqueline.
No, I'm always at the last minute, Mag, sorry. No, okay. It was just the same point as you. It's always a great report and it's always really easy to read. And as you say, we're always assured at the fact that Sarah and the team are doing things exactly as they should, and where they're in control, they are in control. It's just the financial climate generally that is putting us all under pressure. But just a small point, and I noticed the little quote at the beginning: the better the question, the better the answer, the better the world works. I like that. I don't know if you saw it beside the clock, but the clock tower. But I thought that was a great wee quote and a lesson for us in our audit role. So I like that. But it's a great report as usual. So thank you.
Jacqueline, we'll turn you into an auditor, getting to ask good questions.
I'll get there.
I do think it is an important report in terms of, it feels that we hear a lot that sustainability is our primary issue, and this report makes that clear again, that is our primary issue. The day-to-day activity is running well, and I don't underestimate the amount of work that goes into that. But for me, I have a basic question probably first, Rob, just around that confirmation from the council. I'm conscious we want to, I presume we're about to recommend these to the board for signing next week. Is that week likely to be sufficient time for you to get that confirmation? Because that's a material balance for us.
It is. I suppose for context, it's obviously not the only procedure that we undertake around those balances, and all the other procedures are complete with no issues. So I suppose obviously I don't want to speak, we shouldn't take it for granted because it's a procedure we're required to complete, and we should obviously take that seriously and not take it for, not presume what the results will be. I do suspect it is a misunderstanding on the part in terms of confirming what the balance is, based on the fact that all the other procedures have confirmed that everything is in line with expectations, and we have escalated it, and will continue to do so. And I think we're probably I would hope we're pretty close with that. I think we're hoping actually to have a call with the auditors, the council auditors today to try and close it out. And I think from my perspective, what we'd probably propose is that we'd share with Sarah an update probably Monday morning. And if we think, hopefully to say that we're all good to go, and if not, then again, we can consider other areas of escalation if we need to.
Okay, because
but
it will
very,
be
very much intending to still work to, obviously the approval and signing dates that we're still going to.
Okay, no, that's helpful. And then I guess my final point is just around, I mean, it really stuck out to me in your prior year recommendations that, and you're just reflecting back to us what you observe and what we know. I know that, but it is sometimes useful to see it written down. That it is the IGB members that requested officers to go and look for savings and identify opportunities to help bring us back in balance, but we've not been able to agree those and support those decisions. So actually seeing it in black and white is quite stark as a reminder as to it's duty bound on all of us to work together to try and move forward, because the time is moving forward and we really need to work together. So I just thought it was quite helpful seeing it written down in that way, just to really draw out our responsibilities.
Sure.
So not a question, just an observation that for
No,
me, it's what I
absolutely.
recognise and it's what I know, but we haven't made a lot of progress.
Sure. No, absolutely. I probably the one thing I would add to that, because I think is a really useful comment. Obviously, we reflect on our responsibilities, and clearly from our perspective, I suppose we're probably at this, probably thinking about, obviously, the next time we report conclusions around an audit will be this time next year, obviously, which is part of the annual cycle. However, Grace and I were discussing earlier, actually, we thought actually probably the time we get to our audit planning reports early next year, it will, if that feels like quite obviously a significant period of time actually to start, when the latest forecasts are in and the next sort of projections for future years are in, actually that feels like it's obviously we won't be formally reporting on anything, we'll just be setting out our plan, but actually I think we would probably propose to maybe comment on, how progress has been in that space of time, because obviously it feels like an awful long time to wait for a year before we make any sort of further comment or observation around progress. And just obviously thinking about our responsibilities to the committee, it does feel like you say, time is moving on quite quickly at this stage.
I think that's fair. Don't see any other questions. I mean, this is your report to us. We're not approving it, but we obviously take it seriously, and it's really helpful for committee members in terms of the assurance for the next item in terms of the annual accounts. So no other questions for the EY team. So thank you to both of you for joining us for this item this morning and preparing and presenting the report for us. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Grace.
Sure.
Sarah, then on to the accounts themselves, item 6. Is there anything you want to draw out? You're obviously going to read each page to us line by line this morning.
I'm actually going to test everybody to see that they've read every page.
Test is in the fixed asset note.
Yes.
PPE.
I will not go through it in great detail. I will just highlight there is one minor presentational adjustment to the accounts, and that's actually on page 181. And we've added in a note 15 to explain the slight change in the presentation of the CIES, the Comprehensive Income and Expenditure Statement, where we moved the coding of the PCIP, Primary Care Improvement Fund, to primary care. It used to sit under resources, but I felt that was understating what we actually spent on primary care. So we changed that this year. That's the only change. We actually added the note in to explain the fact we had changed it. That's the only change. And overall, the AISC are asked to recommend the accounts and to be submitted to the IGB for approval and signature next week. So I don't have any other comments to make, but more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. And I have to now say this is where my family often say no one else gets my sense of humour. So, and because this is recorded, I have to formally say my joke about the fixed asset note is that we don't have one. I realise that's not a funny joke for anyone who's not an accountant. but I can't help myself. So there we go. But I then thought, oh, it's recorded and someone might actually think that I was looking for a note on PPE. We don't have any. Okay, not funny. I appreciate that. Sarah, what a huge amount of work to get to this point. You've explained quite a technical change in terms of presentation, but I think for all of us at this committee, it doesn't undermine the quality of the accounts. These changes are normal, typical to tweak out through an audit process. The draft that we saw back in June is largely as we have in front of us, if I'm correct. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Which means actually all that work to get to this was done back in May, June time. And then the audit process gets us to this point where we're being asked to recommend the accounts for approval next week at the full IGB. As expected, we don't have questions for you today. I think it's a really good document. I think it's actually improved over the last few years as well. There's little tweaks in terms of the presentations, and the front end I think is a lot easier to read, certainly than when I was first involved with the IGB, and it's even the hosted service piece a lot easier to understand what's going on there with the numbers. So huge thank you to you, and please pass that on to the rest of the team as well.
I will do, thank you.
Pausing, I don't see, I just see nods round the room. Thank you for that, everyone. So our task this morning, I guess, is to satisfy that we are satisfied with both the audit report and the assurances we get, and the work that Karen previously talked about. Her report to us through internal audit feeds through into that assurance piece as well, and that culminates in us recommending to the board next week that they can approve and sign the accounts. So we're content to do that. Thank you. I see some nods. Thank you. So it's a big task. Well done. Thank you. That takes us on to item 7, and we're on to risk. So David, on to you. Morning, David.
Morning. Thank you. I'll be relatively brief, as the majority of the risks and issues in the register have been maintained at their existing ratings as per previous periods. And I would say that the register itself is also reflective of the discussion that we've already had this morning around the financial and sustainability challenges of the IGB. Just in terms of the key changes that have been made to the register, they include a change that we've made to the description of risks, which have a maximum rating of 25. So these are now described as very high risks to show differentiation from the risks that were scored as 20. Previously, we had all of those risks scored at those 2 levels, just rated as high together. So we've tried to split those out to show those that are at the highest rating overall. We've also reduced the overall score for the risk relating to compliance with essential training, which is risk 15. And that's reflective of positive performance across the HSCP in maintaining or improving compliance with essential training requirements. And that's also touched on in the following paper to us as well for the committee this morning. And we've also added a new risk to the register, which covers the IGB and HSCP's ability to deliver against the new national frameworks that were published in June. So the IGB strategic plan does fully align with the intent of those frameworks, but we've not yet had further details on implementation plans, national, regional and local responsibilities, or an enabling financial framework to support delivery of those national frameworks. So within the context that we know of capacity and financial constraints locally, there may be an impact on our ability to deliver those frameworks and shift our resources towards prevention as far as we would want to, and on the scale set out at the national level. That was all I was going to touch on, but very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. I think the risk around the national frameworks is a really relevant one for us at the moment, particularly as we talk about our current decision-making responsibilities as a wider board, as we then look ahead at our strategic planning and updating, and then financial planning going forward. That there are mixed messages within all of that: early intervention, prevention, versus reactive work, and it applies both in health and social care, those demands. But Billy, you will have a view on this, so bring you in.
Yeah, I think this is an area that really worries me. I think logically, and I know that we've had some early conversations as an IJB around our commitment to prevention and early intervention. We know that's the right thing to do. We know that if we do that now, it's likely to save us in overall costs in the next 5, 10 and 15 years. And we know that if we do that in partnership with others, that's also the right thing to do, likely to get better outcomes and cost us collectively less over the next, as I say, decade or so. At the same time, we're having to take immediate cost savings decisions, which we know sometimes take us further away from that. And I think the sooner we can get into a space where we can start to at least shift small amounts into that prevention and early intervention space, what I'm hopeful of and optimistic about is that we start to make some of those small changes that start to free up small amounts of resource that in turn we can reinvest into that prevention space. But the scale of the current financial challenge does make that really difficult. And Pauline and I had a conversation with colleagues from Scottish Government, for instance, the other day, where they were, saying about the 40% in prevention and early intervention. I sit here absolutely committed to knowing that that's the right thing to do, but also really wondering how we're going to achieve that whilst also ensuring that those statutory services remain at the level that Renfrewshire are already delivering. So fantastic outcomes in terms of transfers of care, good outcomes for people, ensuring that the most vulnerable get the care that they require right now in terms of managing those crises. And also recognising that if that's all we do, if we pare back to only statutory service, the chances are that we push more people into that crisis position and it balloons costs. So I think a really challenging position for us as an IJB, and we'll need to navigate that really carefully over the next few years.
Yeah, thanks, Billy. I think we probably all recognise that and it's right that we flagged it as a risk more formally, given the frameworks have come out. Lisa Marie, come to you next.
Thank you, Mags. Yeah, I just wanted to reflect on the change in language and how we're referring to risk. As you know, at the last meeting, it might have been 2 meetings ago, I had raised the question around how we refer to high and very high risk and whether those were aligning with the two partners and why they maybe weren't quite aligning, and they weren't, to be clear, they weren't far off. It was some things were referred to high where our partners might have been saying very high. But just to say that I appreciate the work of the staff to align that. I think it's important that when we're referring to risk, particularly around things like financial, that the partners are kind of singing from the same hymn sheet. So I appreciate the work to do that.
Thanks, Lisa Marie. That's helpful. David, I'm sure you appreciate that feedback as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So we are being asked to approve, I guess, from that conversation and input in terms of where we're at, that we're content to approve that update to the risk register this morning, particularly given the ongoing work that we're going to have to develop around the national frameworks. Okay, thank you. So we approve that update. Thank you. That takes us on to item 8, and we've got a health and safety update. Pauline, I'm looking for you on my screen. Hopefully if you talk, you'll appear.
I'm here. Thanks, Mags. So yes, this is the mid-year health and safety update for the partnership, and we're asking committee to note the content of the paper. So I'll just pick out a few points if that's okay, and then open up for any kind of questions. So around, I think, one of the more bigger areas under incident management, obviously from a health and safety perspective. So you can see in the 6 months between January and June, there is just short of 2,000 incidents that were reported through our respective incident management systems, with a very notable slant towards the NHS systems, with 1,600 reported through Datex and just under 300 reported through Business World. I think for committee's benefit, certainly at Health and Safety, we've recognised this and recognised that we have potential significant underreporting within our social work side of the partnership. So we're working very closely with our respective health and safety advisors from both partner organisations, and we're looking to raise awareness through our leadership network in the next couple of months from the management perspective of supporting staff to report incidents, but also from frontline training to alert staff of the incidents that they should be reporting, because there's quite a lot of anecdotal evidence in relation to, oh, that happened, but I didn't think that was something I should report. So there's a whole raft of work across the teams. The Health and Safety Committee is a really well attended committee with representation across every service area, so it's a really good forum for that type of discussion and for actions to be taken back locally to teams. So we're keeping a watching eye on that, and we do that monthly around the incidents coming in and the volume, as well as what types of incidents they are, and I think you can see that as you go through the report. Certainly, as part of our work over the last number of years, is looking at management of those incidents and ensuring that they're managed in a timely way. We have 30 days to review and progress our incident investigations and implement any appropriate improvement plans. And over the last, at the end of June, we had 29 overdue incidents. That is an improvement, and for reassurance, when we say overdue, they are only about a week or so overdue within those 30 days. We're not talking they're going past quarters or anything. We're very consistent of that, of our approach and support for management to be able to review those incidents and keep that as slick as possible. Moving down, you can see the majority of our incidents affect our clients and our individuals, but there are staff affected in there as well, with the most reported category around violence and aggression when we look at our figures across both partner organisations. Again, that's something that remains very static. And members will realise that from previous reports. So we did have a very in-depth discussion at our last committee about what are we doing to ensure that we've got our safety of our staff and our clients, and is there any additional work that we could add in, recognising that some sectors of the business see more incidents of this nature than others, but how do we keep all of us safe? So we've got a short life working group working towards that just now to see if we can make an impact on those incidents and see a bit of a reduction on them. If I move forward, another key area of focus within the partnership is in section 5, and that's around our serious adverse event reviews. So you can see some details around how many have been commissioned and also how many are opened. We have a process and a policy within the NHS that has recently been updated to reflect that many of these incidents have become out of date and are taking quite a number of months over that date to be investigated and reported on, and therefore delays to subsequent improvement is notable. So there's a real drive over the last sort of 3 to 4 months to move the ones that are out of date, which there were 10 of within our partnership. They're now down to 8, with significant movement expected in September, with reports just about being finalised so we can sign them off. The policy has changed to reflect that the timelines were challenging, but we have a commitment to make sure that that's moving in the right direction, and as such we've added an additional governance group to maintain oversight, an adverse event oversight group that meets monthly that will support the progress of any opened significant adverse event reviews and ensure that we're meeting timescales moving forward. And that can only drive up the quality improvement and help us to get our improvements moving much quicker than perhaps they were before. I think moving down, I think the only other bit, the last bit that I want to really pick out, and David mentioned it previously, is around our training. So you can see our training stats for both sides of the business. For health, the only one that sits below and is noted as amber is our fire awareness training. It's a yearly update, and we try really hard. I think we made it in January just over the 90%, but we've not managed to maintain it, but that is a target. You can see all the other ones that are less you have to repeat them, but not every yearly. You can see that they were starting to increase and make good traction in them, and we do that. We support that each month across the partnership. Again, in social care in relation to Statman training, you can see that we started from a very low position and we continue to improve. The two ones that are sitting lower are again the ones that are done yearly, and there's been some changes to their system that were and upgrades over the last couple of months as well. For priority training, you can see that we're looking at sharps, falls and moving and handling. That sits in the NHS side of the business. The target is 90% compliance. You'll see a sharp drop in May for sharps. That's a 3-yearly update, and I suspect, and I've looked back, we did a significant push this time 3 years ago, and that's people's training falling off, and you'll see we've made a recovery this month, or in June, sorry, and that continues to rise over the last couple of months, and we're looking for another significant push in the autumn to really support people to try and get as nearer, if not above that target, 90%. So we are supporting the managers to be to enable staff to get that completed. I don't think I've got anything else I want to pick out, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Pauline. It's actually really great just to hear that reaction to, obviously, when you're seeing, whether it's dips in training or work that needs to be done, you're responding to things. So for me, that's really positive. Open up for questions. Billy wants to come in.
Yeah, thanks. And again, yeah, really good to see this, and that level of compliance around mandatory training is really excellent and not easy to achieve in a really sort of challenging operational environment. I suppose my question relates back to the previous paper. What I was really interested to see is that we are in general meeting and complying with the sort of targets set by both organisations. Couple of specific training within the council that we need to put a bit more attention into, but as Margaret, you were saying, real confidence that the team will be doing that and will be monitoring that. So it was interesting to see that we've got mandatory training as one of our risks on our strategic risk register, and I just wondered why that was and whether we should be lowering that level of risk and in fact removing it from our strategic risk register. Thanks.
And I think that has reduced. David, do you want to come in on that specifically? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was included initially as there was issues in terms of the data that was available to us to allow us to track the performance on the training, particularly on the council side. So that has improved over time, Billy. And we have reduced it for this period. There's also an element that's within that risk around training for SSC registrations within care at home. And so we're maintaining it on that because there's a real capacity challenge for us putting as many people through that training to maintain registrations as we can. So it's maintained on the register, I would say, until we've clarified that risk and been able to get to a position that we're comfortable with.
Thanks. See a thumbs up. That certainly that. But I guess it brings out that we don't expect risks to stay indefinitely. And this is an area where there's been improvement and the risk is reducing and the actions are working, which that's the point of it. In advance, I'd spoken to Pauline about the SARES work, and this will be particularly relevant for Kath as well. From the health board side, we were as a board particularly concerned about the serious adverse event reviews, the SARES, and so that's why there has been a determined push in that area. So my question was, are we as a IJB or as a partnership linked into that work? And Pauline has described how we are and the impact that has, because that, again, for me, it's not just about, well, we have to do a review because it's required. We do the review so we can put in place improvements to prevent these adverse events recurring. So that's the really important bit. And so it's not just about doing it for the sake of getting it done. It's the improvement piece that makes the real impact. So really good to see that you're working with the wider team on that. Thanks, Pauline. Don't see any other questions on that. So thanks, Pauline. Thank you for that. We're just noting the update today and grateful for the action that's been taken to progress that. That takes us on to item 9, John, the public interaction report. Any highlights for us on that one?
Yes, good morning. Thanks, Margaret. So this is the full year report, and it stretches from April 24 to March 2025. As usual, it includes complaints, inquiries, freedom of information and subject access requests. It also includes an update on the performance of our main channels of public communications, as well as compliments received during the period, and it's for noting. There are no significantly abnormal moves or changes in this report to call out for you today. Complaints have gone down by 18%, which is a positive. There's no real explanation for why that is the drop, but it's good to see that that's the kind of lowest number of complaints in the past 3 years. One thing we would note is that although there's a smaller number coming in through complaints, they are getting more complex, and the team are having to deal with quite a bit more complexity in analysing and going back on complaints. Going through the rest of the report really quickly, broadly speaking, the complaints, inquiries and all the other inquiries are coming in broadly from a similar range of places as they have in the past, and I'm also happy to report that our performance has been very strong over the SPSO targets that we have to meet. The kind of overarching target has gone back up to 90% for all complaints during the period, so that's a positive. There was an additional section added to this report at section 10 that I just wanted to highlight very quickly. There are 3 kind of things taking place over the coming period that could have an impact on the future of these reports, and just wanted to mention those quickly. The first of those is that you might be aware that the HSEP website, which currently is a microsite of the council website, it runs off the same content management system. Members will be aware that the council are going through a process of renewing the website at the moment and moving on to a new content management platform. They have started implementing that in an early stage at the moment, and over the next 6 to 12 months, the HSEP website will be going through a similar review and will be migrating onto a new system over the next year or so. So that a different view, and people might be, the review might spark up some different changes to content and also improved optimization and people finding the information that they're looking for. So we'll keep an eye on that. The second one I wanted to call out, you might have seen from some of Billy's blogs since he's been on board that he's used Care Opinion, which is a mechanism for going out to the public and patients, etc., for feedback on our services. So we're currently looking at implementing Care Opinion in various, one level or another. We're still looking at how we're going to do that at the moment, but that could have a future effect, because obviously we will be kind of proactively going out and seeking additional information, and that could increase some of the feedback that we get out with our current reach at the moment. So that could be positive feedback, more positive feedback, or it could also be negative feedback. So we're open to seeing both sets of additional feedback and using that to inform and learn from that. And then the third point just to note is that for FOIs and subject access requests on the council side, the council have asked us over the past 6 months to start managing these closer to the areas that the requests are coming in from. The resource that must look at the data has to be a council employee, which in our current public affairs team, we don't have that resource. So we're currently looking to recruit into that post, and that will give us a kind of a broader overview of council side FOIs and SARS, as well as the NHS side that we currently actively manage. So hopefully we'll be able to take a look at both sets of data collectively a bit more closely and see if we can manage get the kind of economies of scale and obviously the best practice across both sets. So those were just the kind of key points I wanted to call out just now. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, John. Jacqueline, come to you straight away.
Yeah, no questions, John. Just to say, I always like to read the positive feedback from patients and service users. I think yesterday at the board seminar, Mags, you'll remember we were reflecting that it's always the negative stories that get in the media, and people forget all the positive things that are happening every day and the positive experiences that people are having every day. So it's always a great reminder, and I think it's good for the staff to see that as well and boost morale. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Yeah, it comes up a lot, but it's a tricky one to get that balance right, isn't it? Care opinion is used a lot across the NHS, so we're used to seeing that reported, so that's interesting to see that coming through. Websites, I think more and more people expect to find their way around websites easily and get answers, so I really welcome that, and I think particularly when people just want a simple direction, I hope we were able to maximise how we use the websites, and that feels like a positive. And in terms of the team structure, if that supports the learning, that feels also like a good move. My question is, do we get a reduction in recharges from the council if they're not doing that? I wasn't expecting laughter as the response, but
I don't think so.
I'm not sure why that is, but it's maybe not the right place for that. Jacqueline?
It's on my list to raise. I'll just say that.
I mean, it's if they are reducing
I think it's
the
a valid
service
point,
we get,
Max.
and at cost to us, so that is a question I have. Thanks for supporting me in that, Jacqueline. There are no questions for you, John. Thank you. That's a helpful update. We're just noting those updates. It's really good to see the work that's happening there. Thank you. It moves us on to item 10. Come to you, Lisa, for Hunterhill inspection. Morning, Lisa.
Morning. Yeah, in and around everything else that's going on, we'll also have day-to-day working and still have care inspections, so lucky us. So we recently got inspected in May, and as you all know, Hunterhill went through the redesign when we closed Montrose. The number of residents moved to Renfrew and to Hunterhill, so we've had a lot of period of change. Luckily, that's went for service users very well. We've had really good feedback in around how the move took place. But we do have a period of resettlement around that, bringing the managers, the staff in, creating our establishment. So you'll see we've got lots of vacancies out for our care homes and trying to bring and stabilise our staff around that. The feedback, and you'll see from the report, there was lots of good information, how people felt safe, they felt well looked after, and the care homes, they're very good, and they're very good in the service that they provide and the care that they provide. The Care Inspectorate have come back. They've come back with 3 4s and a 3 as our grading, and you'll see that within the report. The main areas that we were looking at is there's 1 requirement and there's 3 areas for improvement. The 1 requirement that's been set is really in around ensuring that how we're documenting, how we make sure that everything that we do and everything that we take action to is recorded effectively across all the systems that we use. So we've got the Care Inspectorate system, we've got Business World, we've got the Person Support Plan, the Action Plan. So while we were recording and documenting various things, it had to be in that wasn't all consistent across all areas, and that's just part of a new manager, a new team coming in and settling in, embedding in processes and procedures. So I've got full confidence that that'll continue, and it's a lot of work's been doing on that just now as well. The other areas is in around nutrition, hydration. We used to have a lot of the kind of stations out where people could just help themselves to food and drinks and various things, and that kind of, when the move and things had changed, that wasn't as evident. So we've kind of changed the areas around that, and that's been done as well. And just more or less like the fluid charts, the care plans, the support plans. There's a lot of work going on in the care homes just now, just trying to bring them up to the standard that we expect, and what the care home managers and the staff expect. So we are currently working on it. The Care Inspectorate have come back in, but it was a very relatively short period of time because it's fundamental changes within systems, and in order to be able to see that they have been fully implemented, and you generally need a bit of a period of time for them to see consistently month after month that this is happening. So they have removed one of our improvement areas, and the other ones will continue, and we'll go to focus on them. There has been changes from the Scottish Government in inspections, and all registered services will have to go through a full inspection within the 12-month period. So Hunterhill was within that period, so we should be fine. We won't have another one until likelihood next year, whereas Renfrew, who had the previous report, they're likely to go through another full inspection, so we'll be preparing for that as well. Don't know if anybody's got any questions or anything about the report.
Thanks, Lisa. So it's annual inspections that we're moving to, so
that seems to be the shift from the Scottish Government, and the information that's came through for statutory services, registered services, is for annual inspections at the moment, unless that changes. So although Renfrew's just been through one, they're likely to go through another full inspection rather than just follow up on the requirements from the last one, whereas Hunterhill will follow up on the requirements.
And sorry, Jacqueline, I'll bring this out. Just are those planned inspections then, or will
no, they're
unannounced?
They're unannounced. We work very closely with the Inspectorate, but they just turn up. So
yeah,
like for the check one, and this was the 14th of August, they had just kind of turned up, and then we go through and then they provide a report, and then we'll go over that with them and take that forward. So yeah, we don't know when that will be. So we should always be working to the standard that the Care Inspectorate could walk in today, and they should be finding what they should find if we had a planned visit, and that's the standards we work towards. Obviously, with the amount of change and the amount of documentation and processes and work with staff, we have to get that new staff core, and we have to get the new processes for the managers and systems just all in place. But the care is very good care, and service users, there was no concerns raised about any of that.
That's good. Thanks, Lisa. Jacqueline, sorry for holding you there.
Oh, that's okay, Mags. Thanks, Lisa. It's just a small point, but because I can see the grades are good, and as you say, the home's in a kind of transition phase at the moment. But it was just a bit about meal times, and I know it only applies to a few of the residents, but it kind of stuck out for me because meal times are really important for the residents. Obviously, it's a kind of main part of their day, or maybe the highlight of their day. So it's just to get a wee bit of reassurance, Lisa, that you feel reassured that that's going to be addressed and going forward.
Yeah. It's already been addressed, Jacqueline. So, Councillor Cameron, sorry, it's already been addressed. They've already, we've had soft FM in, we've had discussions with staff and around the choice, the diets, the various things like that. So it's already been addressed, and there should be improvements within that area already.
Right, that's great. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks for that. Billy.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa, and again, pass on our thanks to the team, because these are not easy when you have the inspectors in, but good to see the goods across most of the areas, and obviously at a point of transition, that's quite a challenging place to be in. So, and good to see that the team are on that area in terms of the adequate. So I suppose just from my point of view, as you suggest, we need to be at that level all of the time. They're moving to annual reviews, so that'll help us just in terms of providing that external scrutiny and assurance that that's where we're at. I suppose I'd like us to look at how we set our aspirations so that all of our in-house services are at that very good level. So how do we support our team leaders to be aspiring towards very good, not just sort of keeping our head just above the waterline. I'd also like to look at how we work with our private sector colleagues to do the same. So it'd be good, again, I'll take that, I'll pick this up outside of the meeting, but it'd be good to see where we currently benchmark in terms of our private providers. I know that it's one of the local government benchmarking framework measures, for instance, that it'd be good to understand. So, but I can pick that up with you outside of the room, but just to sort of set that out within this meeting, that I'd like us to start bringing back progress towards ensuring that all our services, and including private services, are that very good as a minimum, but really aspiring to very good across the board. Thanks.
Yeah, I just come in that Billy just in the rounds. I mean, the comforting I have to do it the managers when we get an adequate or good. You can imagine they want a 6 for everything that they do. They aspire constantly. Their homes to be the best home. Everybody's to be getting the best service, and we do lots of things over and above to make sure that happens. So I don't have to do any particular work around that for people to want that, because they all want that. They're all incredibly proud of the service that they provide. We just have to get the documentation. We've introduced new dependency tools, and that was one of the things that came back to the care inspector. They're fairly new to us. We took that from Renfrew, we've implemented it, so they need tweaked and to show how we're using them effectively and things like that. So all the issues that they brought in, we do accept them. We accept that they're there, they are in their infancy, and it's very hard to prove their efficiency at that time, and the care inspector will look at that. Also with our private sector, we meet on Thursdays on a regular basis. We talk about, and Pauline and Fiona clarify with that. And if one of our private care homes are not doing so great, or there's some issues identified, that's some concerns, we're very quick to swarm round them. We're very quick to bring the supports in from the nursing team, from the social work team, from the review, the care inspectorate, have joint meetings and try and support that improvement before we jump straight to large scale investigations, which just puts some pressure on everybody. But we do that when we need, but the whole point is support as much as we can before we get to that stage. Hope that helps some of the questions.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Lisa. Actually, it's just great to hear that, because the positive that the team will get out of that higher scoring is great for staff. It's great for staff retention. Everyone wants to be part of, a great team. And I know it's disappointing when you get feedback that's lower than you had thought you were operating at. So it's great to hear that aspiration is there, and that you're working on, it sounds like, some of the processes just to make it a bit easier to allow the teams to deliver consistently at that. So thanks very much for that, and it'll be great to see. I guess we now know that we're going to have far more regular reports back, and we'll be able to get that independent feedback, which I know is tough. It's tough for you, but that's the environment that we're in, isn't it? So thanks very much for that update. I find that really helpful. That takes us on to item 11, and we've got the Weavers Linn inspection. Morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, Margaret. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here today. I am going to speak to you about the Weavers Linn inspection report. This is an unannounced inspection report that took place in June 2025, and this paper is simply for noting. This was a very positive report, so I'm delighted to present it. For those of you who don't know what Weavers Linn is, it's a respite facility. It's a 9-bedded unit, and it provides essential breaks for our carers within Renfrewshire. It supports over 100 families within Renfrewshire. So I'm just going to ask you if you could just look at point 3.3 in the report, and the inspection evaluated, the areas that the inspection evaluated. The first area was in relation to people's well-being. The second area was in relation to the quality of the staff team. And the third area was in relation to the environment. Now, if you look at section 4.2, it details the scores that were received. And just based on what you were saying there, Billy, I'm delighted to note that in terms of how well we support people's well-being, the team received, the service received a 5, which is very good. And how good our staff team is received a 4, which is good. And how good is our setting received a 4, which is good. So the team are aiming towards excellent. And so I think we'll see that coming through in the next reports, we hope. We also have attached as the appendices, we've got an action plan as well. So you'll see that as a part of the pack today as well. Section 5 comments on the key findings of the report, and there were 8 areas that were highlighted as being very positive. The first area is in relation to the person-centered approach to care plans. The second area is around about supporting people's choice within, their breaks, and choice in a manner of different ways. The third area comments on the positive relationships between staff and service users, between staff as well, a positive environment. The fourth area is in relation to the effectiveness of the new care plans that have been implemented. The fifth is about encouraging people to have active lives on their breaks, both within the environment, but also out using the outdoor space and accessing the community. The sixth area commented on the warm and supportive environment, so a good feeling within the environment, which is excellent. And the seventh area, which naturally you would expect with everything you've heard so far, was that the staff morale was found to be very good. And the eighth area was about the clean and the environment being very clean. So if we look at section 6.1, this details the requirements and recommendations, and there were 2 recommendations. These were in relation to continuing to develop the safe staffing, and that's obviously, you can see from the action plan that that's been achieved as well, and that's just as Lisa was touching on with Hunterhill as well, and we're new to kind of getting these things in place, but there's obviously already been a lot of good progress in that area. The second area was in regards to the environment and a real need to kind of just refresh and update the environment. And I'm delighted to note, and you'll see within the action plan, that that's in progress. And there is a date set for the first week in November to have that work undertaken. And just to note, obviously you'll see the appendices, and that is all I have to say today, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Stephanie. That's helpful. We know that Weavers Linn, I think whenever I meet any members of the public, it often comes up as a service that is well regarded. So it's helpful to see this report in terms of the service. Any questions for Stephanie? No, I mean, it's a good report, and you've got the action plan there in terms of some of the actions taken forward. So that's good to see. Billy.
Question, but again, just to thank the team, Stephanie, a good report, and good to see the sort of aspirations of the team to work towards those excellence as you were describing. But again, just acknowledging that whenever you're under inspection, it's an uncomfortable place to be, no matter how well you're doing. So just thanks to the team, and great work. Good to see it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think that is important for us to acknowledge, because it is a lot of work on top of your day job when you're being inspected. I think we all know that, but it's now, I guess it is an ingrained part of the services that we deliver, but it is quite stressful, and it's hard work. So yeah, thanks to everyone involved, both Stephanie, your team, and Lisa for yours as well. Okay, so we're noting that update. We now have an item that is a private item, and the detail in the agenda explains a part of the Act that allows us to do this. But I guess before the recording is stopped, well, that is the logical reason for excluding this item. In layman's terms, it's because the report could identify individual members of staff and locations, and that's the reason that we don't want to then have that in a public recording. Is that fair, Karen?
Yes, that's exactly the reason for it.
Okay, so with that, we then pause the recording. Is that okay?